Let's take the most frequently asked question potentially in the world. How are you? Most frequently answered by, I'm fine. And I think if we think about it, many of us will probably even struggle to say the truth if a family member or maybe a colleague asks you, how are you doing? You would probably still say, I'm fine. But how many founders would be able to confront their VC when the VC is asking, how are you doing, dear founder? How many of us would dare to say, I'm not great. I'm really not great. I'm mentally and physically not doing well. And I think this could affect my performance as a founder and my startup overall. So a super important discussion that we don't have too many times is, what can we do about it? Simply put, how can we prevent burnout? How can we be more concerned in the startup bubble about the well-being of each other? And not many VCs, but some have, from what I have seen, started to understand that we have to have a holistic view on the performance of startups. So not only the numbers. If our founder is not doing great, this will also affect the numbers. So what can we change? And I'm super excited that now this afternoon we're bringing this topic onto the stage. And I have two VCs here with me that have acted, that have understood, that have taken on a more holistic approach onto founders' well-being, and we're going to discuss exactly that. So please put your hands together now for Shikha Ahluwalia and Bernd Klosterkemper. Come and make your way. Actually, I'm going to take this left wing here from you guys' view, and then please make yourself comfortable. It's amazing that you are here to discuss. As I was just mentioning, the topic will be resilience, resilient leadership, what that actually means, and how can we all work together on really ensuring that the founder are more than okay, that they're really doing well. And maybe let's start with that term resilience, because it's often also been coming up in the past months, a resilient leadership. What does that mean to you personally? If we started with that term, what does a resilient leader mean and symbolize to you?
I think that's a really interesting question, because oftentimes when we think about leadership, we just think about the days we have to lead when things are all great and fine, and it feels really easy and great to be on top. But being resilient in leadership means leading effectively in the face of adversity, and not just, trying to cope when shit hits the fan, but actually being able to lead your team effectively and make them come out stronger is what I guess defines resilient leadership. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But the thing is, it's sometimes it's just regarded as something that is just expected from founders, and at the same time, there's the saying always, building a company is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And okay, but what does it take to run a marathon? And what is needed as support in order to get to the finishing line and not collapse at kilometer 20 or 30 or 40? And I think this, for me, the resilience is, okay, what is needed to actually really finish the marathon successfully and healthy?
Mm-hmm. Would you buy in that metaphor that says startup is really like an extreme sports, so it's also almost a survival of the fittest, or do you think it's not so fitting as a metaphor?
I think it's an extreme sport, but I also think that we should think about founder journey as extreme athletes. Mm-hmm. And extreme athletes don't give 110% every single day. They optimize their performance over time with many different aspects that we're happy to discuss in more detail over the next minutes. But I guess the analogy is important. If you're thinking about it in an extreme sports, you should also think about founders as extreme top-performing athletes.
Uh-huh. And then how much that mental role, actually, I think both of you weren't here this morning, but we had an Olympian runner here who was also talking about that mental aspect, and that, it's not only about the run, obviously, there's so much more behind it.
I mean, the thing that comes on top of the sports analogy is in the end, it's not only about yourself, it's about bringing a whole team or a whole company to the finishing line, right? So in that way, it's even beyond what a typical athlete needs to manage, right?
Yeah, then maybe we're
it's
more...
the combination of also being the team coach and the strategist and everyone in one person.
Then we were more like in Tour de France almost spaces, because there is so much about that single cyclist as much as it is about the team, which I think makes it extremely interesting as a sport to look at. What I love about both of you is that now, I said it before, you're obviously on the VC side, but both of you know this founder's journey or the builder's journey yourselves. What do you think are the aspects that come about when that those challenges are really hitting, when those stormy seas are hitting, that we don't talk about a lot? Is that really more on the mental side that we need to talk about more? Is that the physical drain? What is it?
Well, I think it's the whole, right? When I look back at my own time as a founder CEO, it wasn't the super tough decisions in terms of, I don't know, let people go or taking a huge strategic decision. It was more things like, okay, my wife got a baby, we didn't have good sleep, and at the same time things didn't went according to plan. And then someone left who was not supposed to leave, and then you just feel you're not in balance anymore. You're just worn out, and you're not the best version of yourself. And then you go into this almost negative spiral, and you become unsure, and you're not a good leader anymore, and you feel that. And in these moments, it was interesting because I was always proud of my team, and it was friends more or less with whom I founded and who were with me, and they were super strong. But at the same time, there was the loneliness still, because I don't know, I didn't find a way how to really share this in a way that it helped me. And
you didn't have that support system before, I imagine.
Well, somehow I survived, but
you're still here.
Yeah,
came out okay.
But that was the tough. These were the tough moments.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree. On the outside, it always looks like there are these shiny founder, unicorn, chinkacorn, decacorn stories, but the truth under it is really that every single founder that you see today, where you guys think they have made it, they actually had a near-death experience at least once in the company. And that people don't talk about. And I think that is a general issue in the European ecosystem, that we don't have as much of a talk about your failures culture. We more have a culture about talking about your successes. But the flip side of it, of those shiny founder stories, is exactly what Bernd said, is all of the founders. I mean, how many founders do we have in the room here today?
Can you raise your hand for a founder?
Yeah, so quite a few, actually. So I'm sure you would all agree it's a pretty lonely journey. And what is the flip side of the lonely journey? Is you're so consumed. Why is it lonely? You're so consumed by your company and spending so much time on your company that most of the other areas in your life are going to suffer. And most of all, that includes relationships that you have with your significant other, with your parents, with your siblings, with your friends. And it'll also take a toll probably on your health, because what comes last is yourself. You're most likely going to cancel the gym class to take yet another call. And it's going to result in probably somewhat of a poorer health. In some extreme cases, also substance abuse, that I think is also not talked about enough. And so all in all, there is quite a dark side to building a business, which I think relates back well to the first point that you said. Having the resilience to be able to maneuver through it all is important. And why is the dark side so dark? It's not just dark because all of these things that happen, broken marriages, etc., are terrible, but it's also because this pulls your performance down even further as a founder. And that's what most people don't realize, is if you have a broken home, if you have a terrible health, there is no amount of hours you can spend as a founder that is going to make it all right for your company. So you need to try to find a balanced approach for both.
Mm-hmm. So both of you have, with Balderton as well as with Ananda, like I said, reacted to it. Could you give us insights into what kind of programs or strategies you have with your portfolio companies to really don't even have this negative spiral start? I don't know who wants to start.
It was a couple of years ago that we had this discussion in the partners group on observing this, and at the same time then thinking about, okay, everyone in VC speaks about team being the most important thing, like it's all about team. But then when it comes to taking this seriously, we as VC industry are not really good in managing this risk or this opportunity in terms of performance. So it starts all the way before investing. We have an HR expert always doing individual interviews with the founders, talking really deeply about, okay, what are their sources of resilience, what is needed in the future to support them, and then we come up with a roadmap. Just like a product roadmap or a tech roadmap, we have an HR roadmap and people development roadmap, and this is a basis for also our investment and taking part of the budget for that part, because that's essentially driving performance, as Shikha said. So we think that's a very, very wise investment to put in. And then we have a support system while being invested there with the dedicated, curated pool of coaches, with peer events, peer group exchange, and really also a safe space for founders to talk to, where we are not involved as their investors, because of course there can be a conflict of interest, there can be things they don't want to share with us, so there's a totally safe space, a coach for them to speak about all this, and in the end it's also about our behavior. So we try to collect feedback from them individually, directly, but also through that anonymous coach, and work on our own behaviors, what we can do in order to build our relationships in a better way.
I definitely also want to talk about that later. But tell us briefly, that HR roadmap then, is that so much about the chemistry also of the team, to really see who has which strengths so that you complement each other perfectly, maybe taking off some of the stress just by aligning the roles perfectly? And then what is about that whole, let's say, holistic view on well-being, I don't know, sports, eating healthy, not maybe using substances, etc.?
Yeah, exactly. It's about both, right? It's about building the team and what is needed maybe in the team, but it's also about individual health and, hey, where do you need to watch out for, and what is needed. And there's always interested how you maneuver it. There's always a part that is then at some point maybe too personal and too intimate. That's why it goes then to this more safe space where we are not involved.
Super.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I actually didn't know that you get involved even pre-investing and do a full assessment on it, but it does make sense.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. For us, it's a bit different. Our complete focus here goes on to our portfolio founders, and particularly CEOs, where we offer structured programs with different partners. One of them is, for example, with Well-Founded. It's a 6-month option program that we offer to our CEOs, in which they're able, along with their peers, so along with fellow CEOs from our portfolio, to go through classes that include optimizing health, optimizing nutrition, optimizing gym with a personal trainer, with a team of clinicians behind it, analyzing your sleep, also analyzing the relationships in your life. Is there any coaching that can help you? Is there any parental coaching that can help you? Do you have kids? How do you deal with that? So it really takes a holistic view of your life and helps you change your habits over the course of 6 months. And so we actually have 50 founders across Europe that have completed that health and nutrition program, but we have over 100 founders that have participated in other programs we have. For example, how to develop as a leader from a startup phase to a scale-up phase, in which structuring a larger team becomes important. So we've got several resources available as part of our Founder Wellbeing and Performance platform that all kick in at different stages of your journey. One thing that is clear, that these resources are optional. We don't force anybody to use them, yet we have seen quite a huge uptick in folks using it over time.
Mm-hmm. And Bernd, you were just mentioning your own role, but I think, Shikha, you've also uttered that quite openly in an interview, that you as a founder also had quite negative experience with the behavior of your VCs at the time. So I think it's nice to have good programs, but the other side is how you're behaving maybe in meetings. What pressure are you putting on startups when it comes to, spending all that money and delivering the KPIs and realizing those multiples? So what is also a behavioral shift that may have to start to happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was a founder back in the day for 5 years in India, and I built a business from $0 to $100 million in revenue, valued at $500 million, and to say it very frankly, it all went to shits. I made zero money from it. So it doesn't feel very good. And at that point, I would have loved to have investors by my side who understood what it means to optimize for long-term performance. That's just always a massive, massive bonus to have. And sorry, what was the rest of the question?
What are other, let's say, behavioral changes where maybe VCs are seeing early red flags, no toxic meetings, I don't know,
well, I mean, that's a DNA question of the VC.
Yep.
So if you're, if you don't have a great gut feel about your VC, you shouldn't take money from them. It's like a mini marriage. So, would you marry someone based on 2 meetings? Probably not. In India, that's called arranged marriage. So that's not something I would go with. So always do your DD about the investors. And actually, that's a reason why I was very lucky that I could choose to work with Balderton. Because as a firm, Balderton understands what it means to build a company, and that it isn't a linear path, simply because so many of us have been on the operator and the founder side. So they know what it really takes. And so I think to put it in those words, Balderton is usually the first phone call a founder makes when something is difficult. And that's something that we're all really, really proud of.
And I think not many founders would say that, because they want to, present that picture-perfect image of them working.
And in fact, we were just talking about it as we were walking up to the stage. I think many more VCs need to be taking a stance and just being very visible and clear about it, that doing a 996, so 996 is working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. That is sort of a culture that is very much influenced from the Bay Area. And this is, in my opinion, way too much overglorified. Because what this equation doesn't account for is the quality of hours that you put in. It just looks at the amount of hours. But if you are running on 5% energy level for most of the time, you're not showing up as your best self to your team. So I think more VCs need to normalize that 996 is not something, that is a wishful scenario for anyone. And sadly, it is not the case. What's your view on it?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, the indicator you mentioned with who is the first investor that founders call when things are not going well, I think that's a perfect indicator, because that's what we figured. If you show as an investor a genuine interest and genuinely care about the founder, you build a totally different trust-based relationship with them. And this, coming back to the beginning, also on performance, the performance aspect, that shows also in the business context, exactly like you said, because they know, okay, you really care, and you are able to differentiate between a problem and them as a person. Or a challenge, and then you're in the position that you can help the founders so much more, going through pain for them personally, but also pain on the business side if you're involved early. And this typically doesn't happen in VC. It takes forever until a founder feels comfortable sharing that there's a challenge. And I mean, that's the moment where investors can be helpful, besides giving money, of course, but being an investor as a portfolio company with the experience you have with other portfolio companies, with the network you have, everyone pitches their network. If you don't have a chance to give the network really at the right time, and the right time is as early as possible, then you can't do that. So I think building this trustful relationship is a key, and for trust, I think it's key to care about the people behind.
By the way, this is such an important session, and I've seen how many founders, raise their hands. I'm going to give it probably another 5-8 minutes of my questions, but for this one, I would really also love to hear your questions. I think this is such an important topic where I would really want to see what came up during, us already having a conversation that you want to, bring to our speaker and have them answered. So just as an FYI, so that it doesn't come as too much of a surprise, but have your questions ready. I would really love to hear them. Yeah. What I would love to hear from you, though, first is learnings from the programs. So maybe, as simple as they could be, but what were maybe some surprising things that came out of looking at well-being that our founders here can also, take into consideration for themselves about their lifestyles, their way of doing business. We already heard now we see relations, super important, might also come from the founders to say, look, how can we, make this better? How can we optimize it? But what are other things that maybe came about in your program?
Yeah, there are a couple of data points. So our founder well-being and performance platform is something that we've always cared about, but something that we also formalized in 2023. And since then, we have concurrently done surveys in the European founder ecosystem to generally understand where people tend and think about founder well-being and whether this is a topic they can discuss openly. But we've also tracked and surveyed our portfolio founders who have then gone through our program and see their long-term behavior change. So I can talk a little bit about both.
Yes.
So what was really interesting, and I think it really resonates to our discussion that we were just having, is we surveyed about 200 founders last year, and 50% of those founders actually are responsible for a minor that they're taking care of. So that notion of the founder in the hoodie that has zero responsibility in their life is not actually that is reflective of the European founder landscape that we have surveyed, at least. So that was quite interesting. So there is a plethora of relationships in your life that impact how you feel and how you're doing, also at work. And the survey also showed that 2/3 of the founders that we asked do not feel that they have space to talk about or to take time out for their personal well-being because their VC doesn't give them space to do that. And I think that is super powerful. It basically sums up what we've been discussing.
That's a lot. Yeah.
And on the flip side, bringing to you a couple of data points of founders who went through some of our founder well-being and performance programs that we offer, is that 90%, actually 88% of people who went through that program reported that they have better relationships with their team and can hence show up as a more effective leader. And I think that's very powerful. And CEOs have also said that they had a 40% reduction of sick days, which is crazy to me. So it's not like we only took them to the doctor and gave them some aspirin, but it's actually that they were able to optimize their energy level for the long term, which resulted in them not only showing up with higher quality, but also with higher frequency, which is great. And we already see from an investing perspective a return on that program. And why do we do that program? We're not just doing that program because we're not doing it for branding purposes. Or just to be able to talk about it. We do it because we know that if founders are feeling better, they will do better in the long term. And this is pertaining to what you said, is that it's not one simple sprint, and it's also not a marathon, in my opinion. It's a marathon of sprints, because it's just very intense. But you need to really take care of yourself and optimize that performance. And we already see and we already reap the first benefits from it across our portfolio. So we're very happy to share that.
So what are we looking at? Sleep, food,
nutrition,
psychological stability, probably.
Gym, coaching, peer support,
hours.
Yeah.
And on the physical side, really also time just time to reflect, time to balance, whether it's yoga or running or whatever, but time to reflect. And on the topic side, what is interesting is a bit maybe the like substance abuse on the physical side. The question of co-founder conflict seems to me an issue that is overlooked or not spoken about very as openly and often as it happens. It happens a lot, and it's not like, okay, there's the big fight, but there's some uncertainty within the founder team, and being able to channel this in a way. And again, then investors are probably not the one that are approached first for reasons, but finding ways to manage this, and because in the end that's a huge risk again also for the performance of the company.
Mm-hmm. And do you think we are there yet that startups can really say, I have to take care of myself, I'm working less? I'm just wondering if, like, because it sounds so nice, but then when you're really getting to it, of really doing your urban sports class and not canceling last minute for a call, is the zeitgeist there that you think they're actually able to use that, what they've learned, and stick and be very strict with themselves for themselves in a good way, right?
I think we shouldn't care about the zeitgeist. We are free to develop the DNA of that company, or the founder is free to develop it with the investors together, and that works. That you are able to shape your own DNA within the company, and also, like Shikha said, right, how that trickles down the organization and frees up in the organization is amazing. So don't care about others. Find that trustful relationship with your investors. Speak about it. Put it on the table, and there are ways to do.
But what an interesting thought to really make this a pillar of your company building, because somehow, I don't know, at least I didn't feel that this has been something that you strategically think about. Like, I mean, you speak about culture here and there, of course. What kind of culture do we want to have? And then there's the fancy sounding motto. But what it really means in practical terms when you're building something, I don't think we speak about it.
I think the equation is very simple, because, I mean, in the end, Balderton is not advocating for a 4-day work week. That's not what we're saying.
No.
We're saying building a company is the best thing you can do to change the world, but also building a company is incredibly hard, and it's not a linear path, and it's going to take tons of hours, tons of patience, tons of sweat. But what can you do from an investor side, but also from a founder side, to optimize your chances for success?
Yeah.
And when you think about it, it's not about just putting in the sheer hours, but putting in high quality hours.
Yeah.
And you can't put in high quality hours when you're on the verge of burnout constantly. And that's the reality of founders.
Yeah.
Most founders are on the verge of burnout. They just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And same goes for how you lead your team, right? Just pressuring them on hours doesn't make any sense.
Definitely. I'm looking towards you, beautiful audience, to see if there's any questions that you may have. Yes, please.
I actually also wrote my thesis about this topic, which was about mental health for founders in the EU sector. So I also did quote, for example, Balderton as well. Yes.
Amazing.
Yes. So what actually came out of my thesis was that I talked to founders in pre-seed, I talked to founders in seed, Series A, also to business angels and investors in a later stage. And what actually came up is that the investors do not take responsibility of saying, hey, it's actually an issue that we have to invest in. Rather, they told me, like as an outsider who's doing the thesis, saying like actually they want to have like a third entity who is not involved in the whole sector, in the investment phase. Oh, thank you.
Super. Thank you, Christina.
So they told the investors, in my thesis, it came out that they actually don't want to take responsibility in saying like, hey, I'm the one who wants to, who's going to invest into it, although they have the finances to do it. It came out that they actually want to have like a third entity who is independent of the whole ecosystem a little bit, in saying they don't hold investments in a company, and so they wished for something outside. So, for example, okay, we need a psychologist for helping this person right now, so we're taking this person in. So I'm thinking like, how can we actually help investors taking more responsibility for this topic, because this is something that I don't see right now, which I think is actually pretty valuable that you do, but it's super rare.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I think what works pretty well if I discuss it with other investors is talking about risk management, because that's our job, right? To assess risk, manage risks, and if you think of that, then of course an external party could be part of the solution. As I don't know, in product or whatever, we might maybe also get someone external in. But typically the investors are pretty confident on taking the issue also in their own, like trying to influence risk mitigation measures on that and asking for risk mitigation measures. So I would ask those investors back, okay, but shouldn't we as investors push for that, right? And put it on the table in the board discussions and think about, okay, what can we actually do to manage that risk? And then you kind of get them easier.
You're right, that's something I'm also seeing, which is more important for saying like, hey, actually the responsibility should be at your place. But yeah, that's something that I didn't see before. So I think
it's definitely something investors can and must influence by talking about it and by advocating for it. But ultimately, the way these programs are going to get executed will be with the support of the investors, but ultimately you're going to bring third parties in to help you execute those programs. For example, we have funded over 200 hours in coaching lessons, but we've not delivered the coaching ourselves to the founders because we need someone else come in to build that trustful relationship to help the founder on a different level. So I think both is probably true.
But what I'm also seeing is, for example, that you said with that you have like 100 or 200 founders in your company who are actually doing the program. But it's still like it's good that you have it in your program, right? But there are so many founders who don't have the help actually to do it. So which is why I'm thinking like, how can we get the other founders to do it too, although you don't have the investment, like although they're not part of your investment, right?
I think that's a cultural thing that has to spread through the ecosystem.
I have a great idea. Become a Balderton portfolio founder.
I was going to say, I mean, at the moment it's maybe a competitive advantage, but I think we both hope that in 10 years from now, that it's more like, okay, Balderton, Ananda and others started it, but now it's expected from every good investors.
Yes.
And founders just request it.
Yes.
They don't
They do
take
request
on.
it actually. They do. I didn't know they requested.
I mean, they should start requesting it. Yeah.
That's where we're hopefully getting.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good
The
news.
strong ones.
Do we have more questions? Anyone else? Yes, please. Here. Christina, if you find your one.
So first of all, would you say it's one and the same thing, optimizing well-being and performance? Because if you're arguing that you need to be well rested so you can perform better, then you're not optimizing for well-being in a sense that this is the way to increase performance. The second question, would you make a distinction between whether you're in the value creation or in the value extraction phase of the company? So if you haven't had product market fit yet, if key questions in your business model are still unanswered, it's a very different type of work where going for long walks, doing stuff that helps you think creatively is actually helping, versus when you've hit product market fit and you're basically trying to build a Henry Ford assembly line, then pressuring your team for more hours might be the best way to increase performance. Would you make that distinction?
Interesting. Okay, let's start with the first question. Well, it's almost like a PR, yeah.
Yeah, for me, that is exactly right. I mean, getting this in balance, right? It's not like optimizing for one or the other. It's optimizing for the combination, right?
Yeah,
but ultimately,
influences
you're optimizing for performance, right? But you still want your founders to be fine.
Yeah, that's really a key point. You're optimizing for performance here. You're not doing well-being for well-being's sake.
Yeah.
That needs to be clear. And so the thesis is that you are going to perform better, harder, faster, for longer when you take care of your well-being along the way, because otherwise you're just going to burn out and everything is going to be difficult or more difficult than it has to be.
Okay, yeah, we're not going to be able to change the rule of the game entirely, which is performance-based.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay. Second
and
question.
On the second question, I'm not sure whether even in the second phase you still. You want to be the balanced leader on top that takes the right strategic decisions for the day after, where you just push them on hours, right? So I'm not sure whether that is really the best way how to prioritize your time.
I don't think with the program you're probably not distinguishing in which phase your startups are in. Okay.
And to be honest, on the practical side, the more experienced the founders are, the more they value the program and make use of the program. So you would think like, okay, the young ones are really being super thankful for it, but it's more the experienced founders that have been through it once or twice that are really valuing that.
Mm-hmm. Super interesting. One last short question we could take, yes, over there, and then we need to close it.
Already over time.
Yes, I know.
Panic.
It's too important to let go of it. Yes, last question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a very quick question, actually, for Shikha. You basically spoke about that you had like your own personal journey of 5 years.
Yes.
And you had probably a lot of different problems that you had to solve in that 5 years. How would you do your prioritization differently out of the aspect of health and well-being nowadays?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really great question, and I think a long answer. But no, that's fine. But I think two things. In hindsight, I would have taken my health a lot more seriously. I didn't back then. I now have an autoimmune disease, multiple autoimmune diseases that was triggered by my time as an entrepreneur, which is not great. And it's clearly a result of me neglecting my own health. Mm-hmm. So I would have done this differently and listened to my body sooner, because now I have this disease for the rest of my life, which is not great. And then the second is, my second takeaway from the time is, or what I would have done differently is like, you really, really, really have to do your DD on who your investor is going to be. And not just, for sure not take them at face value, but try and find as many references as you can about them. And don't take that decision lightly. Again, it's like a marriage. Like you're going to spend, if things go well, you're going to spend at least 10 years with your early stage investor. You don't want to do this with a person you don't fundamentally like, right? So.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Can you please give a big applause to our two speakers on this very important topic? Thank you so much. I'm happy if you take this conversation also off stage, maybe discuss bilaterally how to improve founders' well-being, but thank you so much for sharing your insights.